Chairwoman DeGette, Chairman Pallone, Ranking Member McMorris-Rodgers, Ranking Member Griffith, and members of the committee, thanks so much for having me here to talk about the energy impact of blockchain technology and related cryptocurrency activities, and particularly Bitcoin mining. Bitcoin is important because it introduced the world to the concept of a fully decentralized, secure, trustless system of financial value exchange that turns on proof of work not as a necessary evil, but as a positive feature of its design. And I look forward to exploring these concepts with you today. My name is Brian Brooks, and I spent much of my career in traditional finance, culminating my service as acting U.S. Controller of the Currency. I also served as Chief Legal Officer of Coinbase and currently serve as CEO of Bitfury Group. Bitfury, directly and through our subsidiaries, is one of the most energy-efficient Bitcoin miners in the U.S. and globally. More about that in a few moments. I view the subcommittee's topic today through two lenses. First, in assessing environmental concerns about Bitcoin mining, or frankly any other energy use, not all energy consumption is created equal. Would we care, for example, that an activity consumes a lot of energy if 100% of that energy came from renewable sources? Presumably not. So if Bitcoin consumes an energy mix that is roughly twice as sustainable as the U.S. electric grid as a whole, that is a more relevant fact than the mere amount of energy that it uses. And even more important are the incentives that Bitcoin creates to generate more renewable production. The second lens is, we're a market economy in this country, so we should think deeply about the economic productivity created by Bitcoin, or anything else, per unit of energy consumed. Thus, for example, if Bitcoin competes as a store of value with gold, does the energy used in Bitcoin mining produce more economic value per unit of energy than gold mining? Or if Bitcoin competes with traditional finance as a means of payment or as a source of credit, does Bitcoin produce more economic value per unit of energy than financial services? The answers might surprise you, as I'll point out in a moment. Now, to be sure, Bitcoin's energy consumption is not trivial, but it is very small compared to many other energy uses that no one questions. Now, I'm not going to belabor the usual comparisons that you hear to clothes dryers or holiday lights or that sort of thing. That would trivialize an issue that the committee's talking about, which is an important issue. But what is clear is that the 188 terawatt hours used by Bitcoin last year, out of about 155,000 terawatt hours consumed globally for all uses, was sourced more sustainably than other uses on average. So for example, the energy mix used by Bitcoin mining was about 58% sustainably sourced last year, sustainable under the International Energy Agency definition, including wind, hydro, solar, nuclear, and with carbon offsets, compared to 31% for the U.S. energy grid as a whole. And Bitfury's specific numbers are in line with those rough ratios. Now, even more relevant than Bitcoin's current energy use is the incentive effect it has on the future production of renewable energy. Bitcoin miners seek low energy costs, and the lowest cost always comes from excess capacity, which can include wind and solar energy and energy lost in the transmission and distribution process, among other things. As just one example, in 2020, in California, where I live, 1.5 million megawatt hours of solar production was curtailed, meaning wasted, because production exceeded demand. And the U.S. grid loses literally thousands of terawatts a year due to inefficient transmission. Now, because Bitcoin miners are easily able to locate near the source of production, these kinds of excess capacity sources can be turned into economic value through Bitcoin mining. And this has the effect of taking what can be an unprofitable business, for example, solar, and making it profitable. Put differently, if we want more wind and solar in this country with less need for government subsidy, Bitcoin can be part of the solution. Now, Bitcoin mining produces a series of other secondary effects which I detail in my written testimony. These include grid stabilization, incentives to improve ASIC chip efficiency by multiple orders of magnitude, and new technology development for things like immersion cooling, something that my company has innovated. Now, an idea sometimes circulates that somehow we could have all of the positives without the energy usage if we would just abolish proof of work and migrate blockchains exclusively to proof-of-stake protocols. As I noted in my written testimony, proof of stake is terrific, but it is not a substitute for proof of work, which exists for an entirely different set of purposes, and without which innovations like decentralized finance would likely not exist. Let me just conclude by comparing Bitcoin to the economic value of other uses of energy, because that ultimately is the question for the committee. Bitcoin uses a certain amount of electricity to produce $1 trillion of value, and what you will find, as noted in some of my testimony, is that the aviation industry uses something like 50 times more energy per unit of value than does Bitcoin. The global financial services and insurance industry uses roughly the same amount of energy per unit. And you will note there's a little bit of glitchy data at the very end of my written testimony, which you've corrected now in the record, but I look forward to talking to you about the economic framework within which energy usage for Bitcoin mining and other usages ought to be talked about.